Hello， 大家好，我係 Ricky 啊。咁我今次又同大家見面啦。上次咧，我哋去咗 EDSC， 即係 East Doncaster Secondary。今次我哋又去到另一間學校。咁呢間學校，大家睇個外牆，估到邊度咧？佢位於墨爾本嘅 South Yarra， 係一間咧好出名、非常之有名氣嘅學校。咁我哋大家一齊認識下咯喎。
嗱，頭先呢度就係而家 Melbourne High 個 main building 啦，就喺1927年喺度。後邊呢度咧就係新嘅 building， 咁呢度就係 Art building， 幾新嘅。咁 Melbourne High 原址就係喺 Spring Street 咯，即係喺 Castle Place 對面。所以而家佢係準備裝修啊，準備100年Heritage Ceremony。咁呢個就係新嘅 Centre Excellence 咯。
Look, we are unapologetically an academic school. Obviously, I don't deny that. You know, people come in via an exam. It is heavily contested. There are thousands that apply, but only on average about 320 come into year 9 and then a smaller group in year 10 and year 11. We are more than marks, and that's very much part of our motto. And I think when you look at the qualities of the school and what it does to develop our young boys, a lot of it is seen in the extracurricular and the co-curricular activities. So today, for example, there are a number of boys in year 9 and 10 doing cadet training, and I've given them a lecture this morning actually on why the military makes good leaders. And so we talked about the notion of duty and service and giving back, and that's one way of developing your character. And so we've got a very strong cadet group here, Air Force and Army, and so that's just one example of how I think we build really well-rounded young people. We've also got an incredibly diverse range of activities: drama, debating, political interest groups, lots of sport, and we encourage the students here to take opportunities that they maybe hadn't had in their previous schools. So if they want to try lacrosse or water polo or cricket or whatever it might be, those opportunities are afforded them. And I think what that does is it builds that well-rounded human being that is going to be a great surgeon or a great lawyer or a great engineer, and we graduate many people into those professions and other professions, but they're also going to have a sense of community, of service, of duty, and they're things you can't necessarily buy off the shelf. They come from the experiences you get in a school like this. Currently, the selection process is heavily based on an exam, which does look at numeracy and literacy, mathematical skills, your written communication skills. And that does, to a degree, tailor a student in a certain way. However, there is a principal's discretionary group, so I always have discretion to take students that maybe have not made it through at that level but are close, just missed out. And so we do that as well with the year 9 intake. That can be somewhere between 16 to 20 students, so there is opportunity there for somebody to put a case forward. And I really encourage those conversations. Sometimes a student may have just missed out in their exams, but can demonstrate that they have really got the character that we want. Because really, it's not just, as I said, about the marks. It's about somebody that's got commitment, that will strive, that will keep going. We do have a Year 10 entry as well and a Year 11 entry. The Year 10 entry is partially exam and interview. So we interviewed 60 boys this year for 30 places. So that's an opportunity for boys that have missed out in their exam in Year 9 to put their hat in the ring, and many of those come through. And that's in the interview, they can really demonstrate their leadership capacity, their opportunities that they've already taken in their previous schools, and then go from there. The Year 11 intake is an arts humanities intake, so that's on folio, and that is totally based on the interview. So, and they were great interviews. So out of that group this year, I've selected another 8 boys that will come into Year 11 who will bring a really diverse range of skills into the mix. What are we doing in the future? I'm currently working with the Select Entry principals and the Department of Education. Obviously, there are only 4 Select Entry schools in Victoria, so in a way it's a small coterie of people, and we do work quite closely together. So we are currently examining changing that exam. So it doesn't take away the maths, science and English requirements, but might also look at the creativity requirements, because the feedback I'm getting certainly from employer groups is that need to have that capacity to be a bit more entrepreneurial, to think outside the box, design thinking. And so we're looking at tools right now where we might add that dimension somewhere along the line for the entry requirements. I'm also working with a couple of groups, and this is partly because of my background. I was part of the group that was a startup at Swinburne Online, and so that was part of an online virtual university campus. And so with that experience, we're looking at doing possibly an online test as well. There's obviously some work we need to do there, but that might diversify the things that we might be able to test for, and it won't have the human resource implications as long as we've got the proctoring right. So it's a work in progress, basically, to summarise that point. Yes, it is a public school, and I think we're proud that we are a public school, because what it does is it differentiates us from the private sector. Yeah, we'll use the word elite. Let's put that in the context of like an elite sports person or an elite sports complex. So you are taking gifted, high potential young people who are also very driven to succeed. But what's different, I guess, in the public sector is that we don't have the high fee tag. So it's a much more inclusive environment. So if you're a young person, a family that is committed to public education, we're not going to be asking exorbitant fees. Obviously, there are some fees involved. I think for what you get, they are very, very reasonable. But we try to, I guess, in some ways, emulate what you would pay for in a private education. Well, obviously, with the collaboration and the contribution of parents, because obviously we need those extra little payments along the way. We couldn't do what we do if we were based just on what the department gives us. But with the parents' contribution, then we provide, I believe, a product which is commensurate with what you might find in a private school. So that's, and we certainly perform. In fact, we probably outperform most independent schools in this country. If you look at our results. Look, if I look at my own personal story, my family came to this country from Italy with nothing more than courage in their cases. My father worked very hard, initially in a factory, and then worked in small business, and then eventually grew his business interests in that area. So personally, for me, education was my passport out of poverty. It was my passport into the world that I work in, which is education. And so what I always say to the boys is similarly that your education here is that platform for your future success. So a core value for us is that we honour the work, that we honour hard work. I said to the boys this morning that I spoke to, some days are not going to be easy. I will push you, but I know that that will render the results. That is no different to what your parents or your grandparents would expect. You know, they have worked hard. We will work hard. We will honour the school's code of honouring the work, but I also believe that we honour our parents and our grandparents who have worked very hard for us to give us these opportunities, because often they're co-contributors as well, whether it's financially or in other ways. So, you know, for me, that is a core intrinsic, you know, thing in the school, that we honour that work ethic particularly. For me, education is something that I'll use your word, worship. I value it, and you know, I'd say that to my own son, that you know, that this is where you can invest in your future through your education, you know, and I certainly feel that it is a core value for many parents, and I know certainly, you know, with Hong Kong migrants, that is something that they value, and we support that, and we work in partnership with them, because obviously we want their young people, their children, to be successful. You know, we probably wish that our children are more successful than we are, you know, and we want to give them the right foundation to do that. So, you know, that's part of the enrolment process as well, and part of the onboarding, and you know, that, you know, we say to the students when they start here, it is going to be a challenge. It's going to be difficult some days, but this is part of growing in the process. Yeah, you know, that's the way we sort of value that and honour it as well. We certainly are a little bit disappointed that, yes, sometimes there is this group out there that are trying to, I guess, prepare people for an exam, and that's, you know, I can't technically do much about that, but I do encourage students to think beyond that, because once you get here, you realise very quickly that it's not just about doing well in your maths, English and science. You have to do well in everything else. And the curriculum is quite broad. In Year 9, we introduce subjects like philosophy and sociology, because we're trying to build a well-rounded human being. And so you can't prepare for that. You've just got to immerse yourself in it. You can't prepare for cadets or for camps. You've got to really immerse yourself in that and push your body and push your mind through those activities. So it is what it is right now. But again, this is why I'm having the conversation with the Select Entry unit, that if we can add additional dimensions, then we're trying to encourage a broader skill set. That's also why we have the principal discretion, that I can bring in other students if they can demonstrate that they have done reasonably well in that exam, but maybe just missed out, but they have the passion, the drive, you know, that's going to get them across the line. And there's a lot of research out there that sometimes that does show that sometimes those who might be the most gifted in the class may not necessarily be the most successful in future, because what makes a person really successful sometimes is grit. It's that capacity to not give up and be resilient when something happens in our business or something happens in our personal life. You know, most of us have had a failure at some stage in our business or personal life, and we need to have the ability to dig deep and move on. That's what I'm trying to build here, is not just academic rigour, but human grit as well. You know? And you can't really buy that off the shelf. I think that comes with experience. We recommend to students that they think of it in the context of what we're currently providing. So I can't stop them going and doing it, but I don't necessarily believe it's you know, what you need to do. I think that if you actually tap into the resources that you've got here, then, you know, first and foremost, you should be trying to get your own teachers to help you, you know, and they're there to do that. So one of the things I've done this year is I've employed some teachers to do our own we call it an academic mentoring program. So the academic mentoring program offers students free support. And I've done it in such a way, and I've signed this off with our teachers union, that we don't do it during the day, some of it is done at night. So students can form study groups at night with the guidance of one of our academic mentors. They are qualified maths and science teachers. I have a leading teacher, or somebody who's a senior teacher who can oversee it all. And so those academic mentors organise groups based on student need. And so some of those are at night, so that way the students get home safely, have their dinner, and then they might move into a group sort of session for an hour after dinner. And that teacher can say, right, well, what are the issues? So you've got some problems with your trigonometry. Let's work together as a study group tonight, and I'll help you. And because they're my staff, and because they're teaching, they know exactly what's being covered in class. The risk with the tutor is a tutor might say, okay, this is going to be in the Year 12 exam. Well, that might be. But sometimes a student needs to know what they need to know to get there, because, you've got to sort of understand the foundations. And so if we've got one of our own teachers helping you, I would try to use that vehicle first before I go outside and seek something else. So that's been a strategy I've deployed this year, and I'm going to continue to deploy it next year. Well, I think MHS is in a very exciting place, and that's not just because I'm the new principal, but I'm pleased that we are moving in some really exciting directions. So, for example, currently, and we can go for a walk later and you can actually see it, there is a building being built on Chapel Street. It is going to be called the Centre for Higher Education Studies. So it will provide Year 11s and 12s with the opportunity to do first year university subjects on site. So we are partnering with 4 other schools in the initial tranche of this, and probably 3 universities, and we will take high potential students from this school and a few other schools nearby, where they'll be offered various courses, so that the facility will have some university level labs in there, plus a lecture theatre and some other tutorial and group rooms. So that's going to be a really exciting opportunity. We'll be teaching various subjects. We're not quite sure what they're going to be yet, but they'll be mainly in biotech, chem, that kind of space initially. Plus, we're going to be teaching a subject we already teach called extended investigation, and we'll be teaching that in the centre. And that is a fairly high-level research-based Year 12 subject, and that will help students also who do that subject to be better prepared for university research-focused courses. So that's 2023. 2024, we plan to commence the International Baccalaureate. So I'm currently being trained as an IB principal. So every weekend, I'm in lectures with a group of other principals. So there's 10 of us in the group, 1 in Shanghai, 1 in New York, 2 in London, myself here in Australia, in Melbourne, and a few other places. And we're training ourselves up to be the next batch of International Baccalaureate principals. And so we will be able to offer that as a program from 2024. And in 2025, I want to unleash the Centre for Entrepreneurship, where we want to be working with our old boys to help mentor current students and recent graduates into entrepreneurial activities. Because I think for me that's a future. To be able to have entrepreneurial mindsets, even if you're going to be a doctor or an engineer or a teacher, it doesn't matter. I think you've got to have that kind of thinking to be able to pivot from different things as they come your way. So that's there's some other things I've got planned, but they're probably the 3 big ticket items right now, along with the Cricket Institute. But for those who love cricket, we're going to be partnering with the Australian Cricket Institute as of next year to begin the process of forming a local cricket institute here. So it's fun times. Look, the other thing that I think I'm working on, and this hopefully will be something that the old boys will really be passionate about, is that in 2027 we will be 100 years on this site. Obviously the school goes back to 1854 in its first incarnation, so we've morphed into different things over the last few years, or over the last decade, etc. But in 2027 we'll be 100 years on this site. So you can hear people sanding out there right now. So I've got a 5-year plan where I want to try to renovate this beautiful old building. So it's needing a bit of love right now. It's very tired, And so at the moment, the first project is that those floors out there are going to be sanded. That's the original 1927 parquetry on the floors. So I'm having all that sanded over the next month and then repolished, and then we'll slowly work our way around this building. Because I want this to be a legacy for Victoria as well. You know, for the boys, I want them to walk in here and feel like they're part of a piece of history. And the boys are very respectful, and I love that. But I want to make it even more special. So as we, move into the project for next year and the years beyond, this is where I'll go to the old boys, and hopefully some of them will be passionate about heritage, and will contribute to our building fund, and we can start to slowly, do that. But I think that's part of the specialness of this place. Look, the challenges are great because I'm not an old boy. Most of the principals of this school have always been old boys. So that's a challenge and an incredible honour and responsibility for me to honour the legacy. So for me, the challenge is honour that legacy, maintain it for Victoria's history, because this is the oldest government secondary school in Victoria. It is one of the most highest performing schools in this country. So that is incredible responsibility to maintain that. So it's a marriage of old and maintaining that legacy physically, as well as those key things that are in our curriculum, plus taking it to the next level. Because, I've used the term a new renaissance, because this school also has the potential to be a leader to other schools, because of the kinds of people that we have teaching and learning here. So for me, that sort of responsibility that is on my shoulders is to honour the past, but also create a really exciting future.